Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Von Manor, where today is another action-packed video in my 100 Favorite Books project. My 100 Favorite Books project, I made a list of my 100 favorite books. I made a video about it, I'll link it down below like I always do in these videos. And what I'll do for this project is I will take one of the books from my 100 Favorite Books list. I will try to find the greatest edition, the best edition of this book that I can, for me anyway. And then I will unhaul all the extra editions I have lying around the manor. True, there are some exceptions. It seems like every video I do of this series, there's an exception or two. But with this video today, there is a big exception because this is Frankenstein we're talking about today. And there's more than one version of Frankenstein. Mary Shelley originally had this published in 1818, but she couldn't leave well enough alone. She kept revising this story. She revised it in 1823. She revised it again for a new publication in 1831. So she was kind of like, you know, the George Lucas of her day. She kept having to go back to this thing and keep working on it. In my opinion, the original text, the 1818 text, is the best text of Frankenstein. That is readily available if you're interested in this Penguin volume. This is the Frankenstein, the 1818 text from Penguin Classics. It's a fantastic edition of this book. So if you're interested in reading that original version, here it is. You can get it pretty easily. And because there's more than one version of Frankenstein, I'm going to keep more than one version of Frankenstein. I'm actually keeping three. And there's a reason I'm keeping three of them, and I'll try to explain that to you now. The first version I'm keeping is this one. This is the new annotated Frankenstein, which was annotated by Leslie S. Klinger. He has come up with a series of annotated editions. He did Sherlock Holmes, he did H.P. Lovecraft, he did Dracula, and he did Frankenstein here. And this is a dynamite annotated edition of Frankenstein. It's just fantastic. This has the original 1818 text, but he also talks about in detail every revision that was made on this story. So you've got, first of all, look at this magnificent beginning of this book. Magnificent title page. The design on these annotated volumes is fantastic. We've got a great forward here. The page layout is fantastic. There is the main text. Over to the left there, you've got, where is it to the right? Looking at it here, it's to the right. Sorry, never mind. Over to the right are the annotations. And this is heavily annotated and heavily illustrated throughout. A ton of really interesting information. Every page has annotations or illustrations, pretty much. There's just a ton of information on Frankenstein that you'll find in this book. It is fantastic. So just for the notes alone and all the information about the different versions of Frankenstein that he gives you, this is probably a must-have if you're a fan of the Frankenstein novel, as I am. If you love this book, you're going to want to have this edition of it because it has a great text of Frankenstein in the 1818 text, but it also has, like I said, detailed information on all those revisions, a ton of annotations about things in the novel that you might not know about, historical information, scientific information, all kinds of stuff about Mary Shelley and Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein. It's amazing. So of course I'm keeping this one, the new annotated Frankenstein. It is the ultimate book of and about Frankenstein, the novel. But I'm also going to keep another book of Frankenstein, and that would be this one. This is the version of Frankenstein. This is the 1831 text, so this is the revised text, so it's a different version of Frankenstein. This is the version of Frankenstein that most of us have read who have read Frankenstein. But this particular edition is the edition that was originally published by Marvel Comics in 1983. It has illustrations by Bernie Wrightson and an introduction by Stephen King. The artwork in this is fantastic. I do have the original printing of this, but I started to look for it last night, and I looked at all this big, huge row of boxes, and I'm like, I don't know where it is in there. But I know where this one is. This is a version that was published by... Who published this? Hold on. Gallery 13. This is the title page. Just the artwork in this is fantastic, which is why this is the version I'm keeping. I would love it if there was a deluxe hardcover version of this. But we've got this one, and I should be happy with that. The artwork in this is brilliant. And Bernie Wrightson, who famously was the comic book illustrator of Swamp Thing. He co-created Swamp Thing. And he did a lot of illustration work for Stephen King. And he is one of the greatest horror illustrators of all time. And this version is profusely illustrated. There are illustrations all over this book. It's packed full of illustrations. And just look at that. The line work, just the detail. This book is amazing. It's just an amazing illustrated version of this story. It's fantastic. And it's probably the greatest illustrated version of Frankenstein that I've ever seen. I've seen a few, and a lot of them are really good, but this is the best one, in my opinion. So, of course, I'm keeping this, both for the fact that it has the newer text and because it is the Bernie Wrightson version of Frankenstein, which is amazing. Now, the last thing I have to show you is probably the most impressive. And you knew I had to have a fancy pants version of Frankenstein. You knew I did, because I always have fancy pants versions of these if I can get them for this series. This was actually sent to me by Troy Treadup. Treadup? I still don't know how to pronounce his name. Sorry, Troy. So Troy Treadup, I got to show you a copy of his book. He wrote this book, The Forsaken Boy, a werewolf novel. So he's the author of this book, Troy Treadup. Or Treadup. And very kindly, I mean, this was enormously kind of him, he sent me this. And this is magnificent. I was like, when I got this and I opened it up and saw what it was, I was just staggered, because this is amazing. So this is Frankenstein, the Manuscript. I will show it to you because it's incredible. So I will read a bit from the beginning of this. This was published by SP Books. And this is what they have to say about this. This is a reproduction of the original manuscript of Frankenstein. Mary's draft. The original manuscript of Frankenstein was written in 2 large notebooks over a period of 9 months. Its pages, reproduced here, reveal the novel in its early stages and invite the reader into the young author's creative process. Percy Shelley's annotations and corrections run throughout the draft, forming a dialogue between the 2 writers and lovers. Through the numerous corrections, additions, and changes, the reader can see the text being reworked and strengthened as the novel's famous monster takes form and becomes more human. So this is a reproduction of the first draft of Frankenstein, which is incredible. When I opened this and just started going through it and started reading it, it was just fascinating. It's fascinating to see the working and reworking of this original story. For example, right here, this is chapter 1. Originally, it read, "When I had attained the age of 17, my father resolved that I should go to the University of Ingolstadt." But it's been corrected and changed, possibly by Percy Shelley. Father is scratched out, and parents replaces father. So when I attained the age of 17, my parents resolved that I should become a student at the University of Ingolstadt. So there are some changes, a lot of changes to the text as you read through it. And it's just fascinating, if you love the novel as I do, to actually read the very words of Mary Shelley as she wrote them, and to see the corrections and the changes that were made to the text. It's just, you know, I kind of geeked out, and I had a hard time pulling myself away from this when I started to read it. I'm going to read the whole thing as soon as I can, because it's just fascinating. And it was kind of fun to read it. I had that interesting experience. I'm old enough that when I was younger, people used to write letters to each other, you know, back in the olden days, and they would often write in cursive script, you know, which I don't know if people do anymore. But I remember when you used to read letters from people, you would have to get acclimated to their writing style and their penmanship and their handwriting to be able to read it comfortably. It took a few minutes to kind of figure out what they, you know, what the words said and what their style was. And I had that experience reading this, which I hadn't had in a long time, where I kind of had to adjust to her penmanship to read it. And it was kind of a nostalgic feeling. It's like, I remember what this was like. But, you know, it doesn't take long. And fortunately, unlike some writers, it's pretty legible for the most part. And even when she goes quickly, once you're acclimated to her handwriting style, you're able to read it fairly easily. And it's really interesting. So this is the original manuscript of Frankenstein in this fabulous deluxe edition, which is probably super expensive now, because I don't think they made too many copies of this. This copy bears the number 190. So, of course, this is the ultimate Frankenstein. Frankenstein in its earliest stages of creation. So yeah, so those are the 3 versions of Frankenstein that I am keeping. This is the best one. So thanks again, Troy, for sending this to me, because this is amazing and will hold a place of pride here at the Manor. This could be one of the coolest things I have, actually. So this is amazing. So yeah, my 3 versions of Frankenstein that I'm keeping. And yeah, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. It's an amazing book, by the way. I haven't talked much about the book itself. I did leave a review of Frankenstein in my Sunday Penguins. So yeah, there you go. I will catch you next time. I've actually got another one of these videos coming up real soon, because I've got another book that I picked up recently for this. Actually, I've got a few books. Anyway, I will catch you next time. Thanks, guys.